I'll call Harete Hipango.
Thank you. I rise for the second time this week. The bill was before the Committee of the Whole House earlier in the week, and I spoke to some of the detail around that. And the Clause 4 under the amendment bill is specifically dealing with an amendment to Section 26 of the Coroners Act 2006. And that is to seek an insertion after Section 26, subsection 2, Clause E, by way of Clause EA. And I would just like to read that out to the House, because the coroner is tasked, in the event of a sudden or unexplained death or death in special circumstances, to determine whether or not a post-mortem or autopsy ought to occur. So this amendment is seeking to insert as one of 8 interests or matters to be considered mandatorily now with this amendment, should it be passed into law, and it's expected that it will. It has full House support. For the coroner to factor in amongst those other 8 considerations the ethnic origins, social attitudes or customs or spiritual beliefs of the person who is, or of a person who is suspected to be, meaning an unidentifiable dead person or deceased person, and that's often associated with either a tragedy by way of an accident or some criminal event that may have occurred. So, of a person who is suspected to be the dead person, or of an immediate family member of that person, that customarily require viewing, touching or remaining with or near the body. For us in our Māori cultural reference, that is our tūpāpaku. Having worked as a lawyer for a number of years, and also part of that responsibility engaging with police, with coroners, appearing in the Coronial Court as well, and medical practitioners, this has created a level of angst, and that angst has often been associated with the time or the era of having practised. And I reference that because I have recollection of dealing with the coroner some 20 years ago on behalf of whānau, and the difficulty for whānau just to have access to the body, the tūpāpaku. And that was very much premised on relationships of the day. This amendment will require that the coroner must factor this in amongst other considerations to permit or allow either the viewing, the access to, or the remaining with the tūpāpaku. Madam Speaker, this is a short address to the House, but I do reflect that on the first reading of this bill, I referenced speaking to a colleague of mine who is the Deputy Coroner, Brant Shortland, and he hearkened me to be mindful that coroners have practice notes. And in this day and age, the practice notes, although there's a discretionary consideration, as had been under the Coroners Act, this will make it mandatory. The coroner's practice note very much reminded coroners of their duty in the cultural landscape of Aotearoa as it is today, to bear in mind the importance of cultural considerations around decisions being made, whether to have access to, touch or view the body. And that was balanced up against other factors, such as contamination of evidence, if that was critical, crucial to the inquiry, or the outcome and finding of the cause of death. Madam Speaker, in closing, I do commend this amendment by way of this bill to the House to be passed into law. There's been mention made by other speakers in the House that it factors in tikanga Māori. Yes, it does, but it also factors in other cultural requirements and needs and belief, values and systems. And as a matter of interest, we live in an ever more diverse landscape and society here in Aotearoa. And in the days when I was working as a lawyer for child, youth and family, there was a Muslim social worker. He died suddenly and unexpectedly, and as is the custom of their people and their beliefs, he was required to be buried within 24 hours. Fortunately, there was no suspicious death aspect to that. The coroner made a decision not to require an autopsy, But this amendment under this bill, once passed into law, will require those considerations to be factored in. Madam Speaker, I commend this to the House. Kia ora.
I call Marama Davidson.
Madam Speaker, very pleased to have seen this, the